Hello and welcome to the history of the X-Files. Omega Ordain coming at you with the history of X. And here we go. X was the codename for one of Fox Mulder's informants and member of the Men in Black. Although X's real name was never revealed, he became known as X or Mr. X because Mulder would seek out his assistance by marking an X in masking tape on his apartment window. In 1989, X led a group of men who, wearing masks, entered a warehouse at 204 Fells Point Road in Baltimore, Maryland, as the warehouse had been exposed to a release of ergotame histamine gas, a drug that was being stored there by the government and had been developed by Susan Medeski. After the men under his command checked that the environment was safe for them to take off their masks, X entered and walked in a straight line past three men who had been helping Medeski. X stared at the men before stopping in his paces after coming to Agent Mulder, who lay drugged and half naked on the ground. He then ordered one of his subordinates to sanitize the area while glaring down at Mulder. And after his subordinate walked back to the group, he again focused his hard stare on the three men who were standing nearby. The next day, Medeski told the three men to reveal the truth about the government. She stopped in her tracks and forced into a car which takes her away. As the car drives off, X is seen in the back seat staring at the three men. After Deep Throat was murdered, X becomes Fox Mulder's new contact on the inside of the conspiracy. He first contacts Mulder by phone, telling him that he has a friend at the FBI. They did not actually meet in person until sometime later, when X offered Mulder information on the case about the soldiers who had been experimented on to eradicate their need for sleep. X was reluctant to be helping Mulder and told him he didn't want to be there at all. It was at this meeting that X told Mulder he was not willing to sacrifice his life for the X-Files as Deep Throat had, implying that he had known him too. After Scully's disappearance, Mulder went to see Senator Richard Matheson, but was met by X before reaching his office. X told him that there was nothing the senator could do for him, there's nothing anyone could do for him, that it was beyond all of them. He also told Mulder that the men behind Scully's abduction had only one policy: to deny everything. While Scully was laying in the hospital, Mulder taped the X on the window looking for help. He became frustrated when nothing was forthcoming. When Mulder was visiting Scully, he saw a man take some test tubes of Scully's blood and chased after him. While stalking the man, Mulder was grabbed and threatened by X. Mulder became angry because when he looked up for help, X wasn't there, and now he expected Mulder to do what he says and stop searching for the men who put Scully in that state. With this encounter, it became apparent to Mulder that X was no Deep Throat, and that X believed that he controlled Mulder, not the other way around. He blamed Mulder for Deep Throat and Scully's deaths, and said that he was not going to let the same happen to him. Hence, he told Mulder to stop before he led them to him. When Mulder began to catch up to the man he was pursuing, X came to Mulder's rescue, but then brutally assaulted and executed the man. X later informed Mulder that the men who were involved in Scully's abduction would be searching his apartment for information they believe he had. X told him that they believe he was out of town, and that this would be their only chance for justice, that waiting for these men and killing them was the only way. Mulder and Scully investigated a case involving a suicide of a U.S. soldier that appeared to have connections to voodoo. They found themselves being stonewalled, and X turned up to tell Mulder that the cases were being made to disappear and that the military was sanctioning Colonel Jacob Warden's revenge for the suicide of his two men. Men he believed were being driven to it by Pierre Bovares. He cynically advised Mulder that by the time they formed a committee to investigate it, the whole thing would have been made to disappear. Mulder and Scully started investigating a case where previous stable people seemed to be suffering from some sort of psychosis and ended up murdering innocent people that they believed were someone else. Mulder found out about this case from an anonymous man who emailed him to meet up, but would not reveal who he was working for. He did, however, tell Mulder that if he didn't investigate this case, more people would die. Mulder later discovered that X was involved. He killed the men who knew about the devices planted on the people's television poles that caused them to exhibit such violent behavior. He also explained to Mulder that his orders were always to clean up the evidence. He was just hoping that Mulder would get to the men first. Mulder berated him for risking his and Scully's lives, but never his own. X simply smirked at him. Mulder was unaware of who actually saved him from the train car. When Mulder pulled his gun on X, X questioned Mulder by asking him if this would be his victory by killing X. He said, "The truth is, you need me, Agent Mulder." Later, X met with the smoking man to let him know that all the evidence and people involved has been eliminated. X had killed the informant who had tipped off Mulder and lied about the source of Mulder's informant, remaining unknown. The death of X. X was known as a subordinate of the cigarette smoking man and followed him to Mulder's summer residence where he met Tina Mulder. X took several photographs. She collapsed after the meeting, and when Mulder went to see her at the hospital, she wrote the word palm. X presented the pictures he had taken of the cigarette smoking man and Miss Mulder to Mulder. He had asked Mulder if he had known that his mother and the cigarette smoking man had knew each other. Mulder hadn't known and was amazed that his mother was at the summer house in the first place. She had sworn she had never gone back there after she divorced his father. In the photos, the cigarette smoking man seemed to be asking Miss Mulder for something that she had kept at the house. Mulder was mystified as to what that could be. Mulder went to the summer house and searched the place. He then realized that his mother wrote the word palm. She actually meant lamp. With this information, he smashed a lamp and found a pointed weapon used to kill the alien clones. X met up with Mulder in the parking lot and tried to get him to give him the weapon. Mulder refused, and they fought each other. As Mulder walked away, X told him he's dead. The First Elder had also obtained copies of X's photographs and presented them to the smoking man to prove that he had a traitor in his midst. While Miss Mulder was in the hospital following a stroke, the First Elder leaked information that she was unprotected in hopes that the traitor would present this information to Mulder and reveal his identity. X went to Mulder's apartment to inform him that his mother was in danger, but he found Scully instead. She tried to get information from him about the inventory Jeremiah Smith was making, but he insisted that she leave alone and protect Mulder's mother. Later, the syndicate set a trap for X to eliminate him. They sent the gray-haired man to Mulder's apartment to place the X on Mulder's window. When X arrived at Mulder's apartment, he realized too late that he had been tricked. X ran from the elevator where the gray-haired man shot him in the stomach. While bleeding profusely, X was able to crawl down the hallway back to Mulder's apartment and leave one last clue. In his own blood, he wrote SRSG, which would point Mulder towards a new source of information. He then bled to death on Mulder's floor.